She was just a virgin analyst until the CEO took her heart and her body in one night, 8 o'clock in the morning, at Bridgewell Holdings headquarters in downtown Seattle. Employees rushed into the towering glass building, coffee cups in hand, some still chewing on the last bite of a bakery croissant. The air was rich with the scent of freshly polished floors and luxury perfume, exactly what you'd expect from a high-powered financial firm. Among the sharp suits and professional heels entered a young woman who seemed completely out of sync. Natalie Rivera, 27 years old, the newest hire in the data analytics department, stepped through the front doors in a slightly wrinkled cream blouse, a faded navy skirt, and, most noticeably, a pair of completely mismatched shoes. On her right foot, a scuffed high-top sneaker. On her left, a worn-out tan leather slip-on with frayed stitching along the heel. At first glance, you'd assume she couldn't afford new shoes, or worse, that she had no clue how to dress herself. And just like that, heads turned. A few women from HR giggled behind their desks. Someone took a secret photo. Another whispered, "Maybe she thinks it's still Monday. Those shoes are tragic. She's probably cosplaying poverty or something." Snickers echoed behind her, but Natalie didn't flinch. She walked forward, head up, pace steady, face unreadable. There was a quiet calm in her steps that made people part as she passed, even if they were just mocking her seconds ago. A janitor tapped her shoulder, holding out an ID badge. "You dropped this, ma'am." She smiled softly. "Thank you." She clipped it back on. Natalie Rivera, Junior Data Analyst. The elevator stopped at the 12th floor, Analytics Department. An open space office greeted her, all in white and gray tones, eerily quiet. Everyone was glued to their monitors. Natalie made her way to the far corner, where the smallest desk sat by the window. No one welcomed her. No one even looked up. But she didn't seem fazed. She opened her laptop and exhaled. Her eyes drifted outside, to the foggy Seattle skyline. In her mind, one single thought echoed, "Start from the bottom, learn from the quiet." 10 a.m., 18th floor of Bridgewell Holdings, the executive conference wing. The elevator doors slid open and heads turned across the lobby. Stepping out in a perfectly tailored charcoal gray suit, his dark hair slicked neatly, was Lucas Grant, 30, CEO of TechSphere, one of the country's top tech firms and a strategic partner of Bridgewell. Lucas was a regular on business magazine covers, not just for his brains, but for his cold, stoic demeanor. He rarely smiled in public, but today the man dubbed America's most unapproachable CEO was carrying a coffee in a brown paper bag. "Good morning," he greeted the receptionist with a faint smile. "I have a meeting with Marcus, but first I need to make a stop." "Of course, Mr. Grant. The data department is on 12. As he exited on the 12th floor, Lucas walked with purpose to the farthest desk in the room, the only spot that seemed isolated from everyone else. "You've been ignoring my messages," he said, placing the bag and coffee gently on Natalie's desk. She looked up, startled to see him. "Lucas, what are you doing here?" she asked softly, eyes darting around as nearby colleagues began to glance their way. "I have a meeting. Marcus mentioned you were working here. Thought I'd say hi." Lucas offered the cup. "Cappuccino. No sugar, light milk. Just like you had at the family gathering last month." Natalie flushed but kept her composure. "You didn't have to bring this. I'm trying to stay low profile, remember?" Lucas tilted his head, amused. "I'm just being polite. And you're the first person who ever gave me directions at a party where I felt completely lost." "Directions to the restroom aren't exactly a profound memory," Natalie chuckled. Around the office, the air shifted. A few people whispered, "Do they know each other?" "No way, there's no chance Lucas Grant would talk to her." Natalie gently nudged the bag back to him. "Thanks, but maybe you should head to your meeting before the whole office implodes." "I'm going, but stop avoiding me. I'm not dangerous." "No, you're just annoying." Lucas chuckled and turned away. Every eye followed him as the elevator doors closed. Moments later, Natalie's phone buzzed. A text lit up the screen. "Avoid me again, and next time I'm bringing an entire box of donuts. And I know you can't resist donuts." She stared at the screen, lips curling into the faintest smile. Something inside her stirred. just a little. A week had passed since Lucas showed up with coffee and pastries, but the office on the 12th floor was still buzzing. Natalie and Lucas Grant. Maybe they're distant cousins? Or maybe she's seducing the CEO. Whispers behind screens, side glances, half-hidden smirks, all directed at the girl with the mismatched shoes. Natalie remained silent. She didn't defend herself, didn't complain. Every morning she arrived early, brewed her own coffee in the pantry, and quietly opened her laptop, working as if those eyes didn't exist. Yet somehow her calm presence seemed to aggravate others even more. One afternoon during lunch break, Natalie sat alone in the pantry eating instant noodles. The door burst open. In walked two women from marketing, Tessa and Chloe, known for being the queens of office gossip. "Oh, ramen day," Chloe sneered, taking a seat across from her. "No one asked you out for lunch?" Tessa chimed in. "Or are you waiting for Lucas Grant to bring sushi?" Natalie didn't answer. She kept stirring her noodles. "Honestly," Chloe leaned forward, lowering her voice, "we're just wondering, how does a girl who doesn't wear makeup and dresses like a paperboy catch a CEO's attention? Magic spell? Pity card?" Natalie's eyes flickered, but she stayed quiet. "Cat got your tongue?" "Not at all," she replied slowly. "I just don't feel the need to respond to questions that aren't sincere." Tessa burst out laughing. "Wow, that was supposed to be deep." Natalie stood up, calmly tossed her noodles into the trash, and walked out without looking back. As she exited into the hallway, she nearly bumped into someone. Lucas, leaning against the wall with a coffee cup in hand. "I heard everything," he said, raising an eyebrow. Natalie exhaled. "I don't need rescuing." "I'm not here to play superhero," Lucas replied. "I just wanted to check if you're okay." "I'm fine." "You always say that." He stepped closer. "But no one's fine when they're treated like they don't belong." Natalie turned to face him. "I chose this path, Lucas. I chose to start from the bottom. I don't get to fall apart just because of a few mean words." He went quiet for a moment, then set his coffee down on the railing. "Then at least let me be your daily barista. Just for morale support." She chuckled softly. "You sound like you're applying to be my emotional support clown. I'll take the job. No salary required. Just seeing you smile is payment enough." Natalie shook her head and walked away, but this time her steps were lighter, and so was her heart. Since that day, Lucas became something of a fixed routine on the 12th floor. No one knew exactly why he showed up every morning, but by 8:45 a.m. he was there. 2 cups of coffee, a bag of pastries, and a soft smile that didn't quite match his reputation as the cold CEO. Natalie pretended not to notice, but everyone else knew he only had eyes for her. "Good morning," Lucas said, placing the coffee on her desk. "Flat white today. Less bitter than cappuccino. I figured yesterday was rough." "Do you track my mood on a spreadsheet?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "No, I go by heart rate. You know, when you're upset, your keyboard clacks twice as hard." "Then yesterday I probably dented the desk," Natalie sighed, taking the cup but didn't smile. Lucas shrugged casually. "That's okay. I brought almond croissant. It's the official cure for workplace grumpiness." Sometimes he stayed for just a few minutes. Other times he pretended to be a delivery guy. One morning he brought a tiny booklet titled 101 Ways to Reduce Workplace Stress, special edition for Natalie Rivera. "You actually printed this?" she asked, laughing for the first time in days. "I hired a freelancer to design it. Cost me $30, but if you smile, it's worth every cent," Lucas replied, deadly serious. And so, day by day, Lucas became a part of Natalie's workday. Not loud, not flashy, just consistent, just there. Morning knock at 8:45. Coffee placed exactly where she liked it. Little sticky notes taped to her screen. "You forgot to smile. Look up. Seattle's sky may be gloomy, but I might just brighten your day. Today's donut is chocolate, like life. Slightly bitter, but mostly sweet if you pay attention." It wasn't planned, it wasn't labeled, but somehow, without trying too hard, they kept moving, inch by inch, closer. Natalie started waiting for that morning knock. Lucas stopped pretending he came for any reason other than her. A connection with no official title. Just something warm, like a morning coffee in Seattle's chilly autumn. But as with everything in life, just when something starts to feel too comforting, reality finds a way to pull you back down. Though Lucas still showed up every morning with perfectly timed coffee and sweet little notes, the stares around Natalie grew heavier, the whispers sharper. And then, one day, silence was no longer enough to protect her. It all came crashing down on a Wednesday afternoon. The pantry on the 12th floor buzzed with the usual gossip. Natalie stood quietly by the coffee machine, her hands trembling slightly from a stressful morning. A few co-workers walked past, giving her their routine once-over, as if silently rating how weird she looked today. Then came the unmistakable click of heels. Chloe and Tessa again. They planted themselves in front of Natalie, arms crossed. "Mismatched shoes again," Chloe said loudly, loud enough for everyone in the room to hear. "New fashion trend? Or just too broke for a matching pair?" Tessa added. Natalie didn't respond. She calmly stirred her coffee. Chloe slammed a hand on the counter. "Stop pretending to be above it all. You think you're special? You're just a low-level analyst playing mysterious for attention." A few people snickered. No one stepped in. "And don't think I haven't noticed you hovering around Lucas Grant," Tessa snapped. "We saw the security footage. What's the plan? Sleep your way up?" Natalie finally looked up. Her eyes had gone cold. "If that's truly what you believe, I pity you." "What did you just say?" Chloe lunged forward, hand raised to slap her. But that hand never landed. "What exactly were you about to do to someone who matters to me?" A deep, icy voice cut through the room like a blade. Lucas stood in the doorway, sleeves rolled up, his face void of all warmth. One hand gripped Chloe's wrist midair. The other gently nudged Natalie behind him. "Mr. Grant?" Tessa stammered. Lucas didn't look at them. His eyes stayed locked on Natalie. "Are you okay?" She nodded slightly, her face pale but her gaze steady. The pantry doors opened again. Marcus Rivera, Natalie's older brother and the interim head of Bridgewell, walked in, flanked by the head of HR. "What's going on here?" Marcus asked coldly. No one answered. He didn't need them to. He glanced at his sister, then back to the staff. "Chloe, Tessa, HR is waiting. Now. Ron, call security if they don't leave in 3 minutes." "Wait, why? We didn't do anything." "You attempted to slap my sister, at work, in broad daylight, and that's nothing?" The room froze. All eyes turned to Natalie. "She's Marcus's sister? Wait, does that mean—" Lucas placed a firm hand on Natalie's shoulder, as if silently saying, "Let us handle this." Marcus stepped forward. "Let me say this once. Natalie Rivera isn't just my sister. She is the rightful heir to Bridgewell Holdings." The words hit like thunder. Chloe and Tessa stood paralyzed. The office held its breath. Marcus turned to Natalie. "You've endured enough. It's time they knew who you are." Natalie didn't flinch. Her eyes no longer carried hesitation. She took a deep breath, facing them all. "I never asked to be respected for my last name. But maybe today's the day I stop staying silent." And in that moment, everything changed. The news spread across the company in less than an hour. Chloe and Tessa were terminated the same day. No warning, no further explanation. Their emails were shut down and their desks cleared in 15 minutes under HR supervision. The entire 12th floor shifted into an odd, heavy silence. No one whispered loudly. No one stared at Natalie for too long. And Natalie remained as quiet as ever. There was no gloating, no smug smile. She still arrived early, sat at her same corner desk by the window, and wore her mismatched shoes like always. But something had changed. That afternoon, Marcus approached her desk, holding a manila envelope and a folder in his hand. "Got a few minutes?" he asked. Natalie nodded. They stepped into a small conference room nearby, where Lucas was already waiting. Marcus sat down and slid the file across the table. "Dad approved this last week, but since you wanted to stay anonymous, I held off. Now, I think it's time." Natalie opened the folder. The bold title on the first page made her heart pause for a beat. Appointment letter. Natalie Rivera, Director of Employee Development. She looked up at the two men. Marcus gave her a soft smile. Lucas simply nodded, his eyes filled with quiet pride. "This is the role I believe suits you best," Marcus said. "You've always cared about people, always listened, always understood what it feels like to be overlooked. You can reshape the way Bridgewell treats its people, starting with what you've lived through." Natalie held the folder with both hands, silent. "You don't have to prove anything anymore, Nat," Lucas said gently. "But if you want to, now's the time to really begin." She glanced down at her mismatched shoes, a habit, a message. Then she smiled. "All right then, let's begin." News of Natalie being the heir of Bridgewell Holdings became official just days later. An internal email was sent company-wide, with a congratulatory message from the board for director Natalie Rivera. From then on, Lucas didn't have to hide anymore. He still showed up on the 12th floor every morning, but now no one dared to whisper. Instead, there were polite nods, awkward smiles, and open stares of curiosity. And if there were an award for most persistent yet charming pursuer, it would undeniably go to Lucas Grant, and his one and only target, none other than Natalie Rivera. Since everything had gone public, Lucas didn't hold back. He pursued her openly, clearly, sometimes even theatrically. But no one could be mad at him for it. Every morning in the elevator, Natalie would step in to find him already standing in the back corner. "Good morning, Director Rivera. The elevator seems especially cheerful today," he'd grin, handing her a latte, her usual order. "You've been in here since what floor?" She raised an eyebrow. "Nope, I got in from the basement early, waiting for this exact elevator, practicing ambush reflexes." They walked out together. She shook her head. He smiled. "And everyone else?" They watched like it was their favorite daily show. One Saturday evening, Lucas texted her, "Go out with me tonight. Not a business dinner, a real date." Natalie almost declined. She wasn't a fan of crowds and she hated being the center of attention. But Lucas knew how to convince her. And so, she said yes. He picked her up in a vintage sports car, not for show, but because he knew she liked things with a story. The destination, a small lakeside restaurant by Lake Union. Warm yellow lighting, vintage decor, quiet and cozy. They chose a table by the window, where the lake lights shimmered in the background. "Have you been here before?" Natalie asked. "No, I wanted our first real date to be somewhere I've never brought anyone else." She paused for a moment. Her heart skipped a beat. They talked about everything, childhood quirks, strange hobbies, Lucas almost quitting his CEO job to open a Vietnamese sandwich shop, Natalie writing in journals for 3 years without ever rereading a page. Dinner ended with a pre-ordered apple tart. "Because you never order dessert but always finish mine." On the drive home, Lucas pulled over on the Aurora Bridge. "Why are we stopping?" Natalie asked. He turned to her, his gaze serious. "Because I need to say this somewhere quiet enough to hear myself." She didn't respond. For the first time that evening, her heart clenched. Lucas took a breath. "I like you, not because you're the heir, not because you're different, but because when you look at me, I want to be better." Natalie met his eyes. No hesitation. "So, what if I told you I like you too?" Lucas smiled. Not the usual smirk, but a real smile. "Then I'd do this." And he leaned in and kissed her, soft, slow, like nothing else mattered but that moment. From that day forward, they were officially dating. Lucas no longer hid it. He held Natalie's hand in the elevator. He left a donut box on her desk labeled, "Reserved for the woman who restructured HR." He even dropped by HR asking, "Is Director Rivera smiling today? If not, I'm suing the weather." The office adjusted, and Natalie stopped hiding too. She started wearing more coordinated shoes, still playful in color, still uniquely her. Like her, still Natalie, but stronger, more sure of herself. She didn't walk the halls alone anymore. She walked beside Lucas, the man who never tried to change her, only chose to love her exactly as she was. Lucas met Natalie's family not through a formal introduction, but completely by accident. That day, Natalie had a mild cold. Marcus called their mom immediately, and soon enough, Clara Rivera, a petite, strong-willed Latina matriarch, flew in from California after just one phone call. When Clara arrived at Natalie's apartment, Lucas was already there, holding a bowl of congee and looking mildly panicked to see a woman at the door with arms full of grocery bags. "And you are?" she asked, her tone sharp but composed. Lucas stood upright, voice slightly shaky. I'm her unofficial, temporary, maybe boyfriend?" Clara stared at him for 3 seconds, then calmly walked inside, placed her bags down, and turned to Natalie. "If you eat that congee and don't die, I'll consider him." "I'm still alive, Mom," Natalie replied, laughing. From that day on, Clara called Lucas the soup boy, but it was oddly affectionate. Martin Rivera, Natalie's father, was impressed the moment Lucas mentioned an internal scholarship fund for low-level employees. A CEO who thinks about others. Good, very good. After a few family dinners, Martin even pulled Lucas aside, poured him a drink, and said, "If you can keep that girl smiling every day, nothing else really matters." Lucas wasn't just liked. He became part of their family, a calm, steady presence. He helped Clara cook, mostly by chopping onions and spilling spices. He played chess with Martin, lost every time, but still laughed. He joined Natalie and Marcus at their grandmother's grave, placing white lilies on the anniversary, though he'd never met her. Each little act made Natalie realize this wasn't just a crush. He wasn't just someone special. He was the one she wanted beside her for the long haul. Lucas changed too. He smiled more, softened around the edges. Some nights he stayed late at the office just to drive Natalie home, a quiet ritual they never talked about, but always followed. And just like that, their love grew. No drama, no promises carved in stone, just one ordinary day at a time, together. And just when everything seemed to settle, work in harmony, love steady, family embracing it all, Natalie thought life would simply continue flowing, quietly and content. She had finally let herself believe peace was permanent, that maybe after all the storms, life could stay soft. But then, on a spring morning, as she stepped into the company's auditorium for what she assumed was a routine event, she had no idea that it would become the most heart-stirring day of her life. That morning, the auditorium at Bridgewell Holdings was meticulously arranged for the all-staff meeting. Nearly 600 employees from various branches had gathered at the headquarters. On stage, the company logo glowed in soft light. No one knew exactly what the meeting was about, only that an important announcement from the board is coming. 9 a.m., everyone seated, cameras on, lights dimmed. Marcus stepped onto the stage, mic in hand. "Thank you all for being here today," he began. "What I'm about to share is not just a promotion, it's a turning point in Bridgewell's future." He paused, glancing toward the front row. Until now, many of you may have noticed a quiet woman working on the 12th floor. She never asked for attention, never demanded anything, but in her silence, she was listening more deeply than anyone else here. Marcus extended a hand toward the stage wing, and today I'm honored to introduce the future CEO of Bridgewell Holdings, Director Natalie Rivera. Applause thundered through the hall. Natalie walked out. She wore a crisp white suit, elegant, simple, striking. Her hair was tied back, her expression calm. And like a subtle declaration, she wore mismatched shoes, one black, one navy. She stood beneath the spotlight, microphone in hand, scanning the room. "Good morning," she began. "Some of you may have seen me around, or thought you knew who I was." The room quieted. "I worked on the 12th floor. As a data analyst, I was overlooked, judged by appearance. I ate alone for months, and I heard things in this office no one should ever hear." She paused, then smiled. "But those days taught me what really matters: humility, listening, and empathy. I'm not here to change everything overnight, but I will start with this. At Bridgewell, you'll be seen for who you are, not how you look or where you come from." The room was silent, then erupted in applause. Natalie nodded in thanks. "If I have the courage to stand here today," she continued, "it's because a few people believed in me, long before I had anything to prove." Her eyes found Lucas in the front row. A quiet moment passed between them. "And I believe anyone can rise the way I did, if we build a workplace where no one has to hide." She bowed, standing ovation. As Natalie stepped down from the stage, Lucas walked toward her. In a navy suit, no microphone, no podium, just a man with something to say. And right there, in front of everyone, he knelt down. Natalie froze. Lucas opened a small ring box. Not dramatic, not rehearsed. He looked at her for a long moment, hands slightly trembling, as if this moment, despite all his confidence, still scared him. "I've tried to impress you with coffee, donuts, and dumb jokes," he said, voice steady. "But you never needed perfect. You needed real. And here's my truth. I love you. And if you'll let me, I want to love you for the rest of my life." The room held its breath. Natalie covered her mouth. Tears welled up. She didn't speak. She nodded. Lucas stood, gently slipped the ring onto her finger. They embraced, standing under the stage lights, surrounded by applause and cheers. No flowers falling, no dramatic music. Just two souls, once quiet strangers, now each other's home. In a flash, every memory came rushing back. The mornings he brought coffee to her desk, the quiet drop-ins to the pantry with a small pastry in hand. The rainy evenings he stood outside her door with warm food. And the moments he said nothing, but stayed anyway. Natalie had always believed her strength came from being alone. But now, under bright lights and thundering applause, she realized she was strongest not when standing alone, but when letting someone truly see her. Tears slipped down her cheeks, light as a summer drizzle. Not from surprise, but from the certainty that, for the first time, she knew with all her heart. This is the person she wants to walk through life with. She nodded. No words, because real love sometimes speaks loudest in silence. A few months after that life-changing meeting, the ground floor of Bridgewell Holdings headquarters was transformed into an open space, with more greenery, a small reading corner, and a quiet rest area for staff. Natalie didn't want to begin her term as CEO with a corporate memo. She wanted to begin with something small, something human. Natalie Rivera officially became the new CEO of Bridgewell Holdings in a ceremony that was quiet, warm, and heartfelt. She entered the CEO office, once her father's, for the first time, not in heels and power poses, but with a laptop, a cup of coffee, and the same mismatched shoes she always wore. But this time, she didn't feel like she was pretending to belong. This time she knew. She was exactly where she was meant to be. And from that moment on, everyone knew. She didn't just fill the role, she earned it. Lucas stayed the same, her steady partner, thoughtful husband, and a slightly clumsy diaper changer. They held a small wedding in an old church in Seattle, just family and a few close friends. 1 year after their wedding, Natalie and Lucas entered a new chapter of life, becoming parents. Natalie discovered she was pregnant on a gentle spring morning when the sunlight was just soft enough to melt anyone's heart. She stared at the two red lines in silence, her heart racing, not with panic, but with a strange certainty that her entire world had just shifted. Lucas found out that evening. For a few seconds, he said nothing. He simply sat still, eyes locked on hers, then suddenly knelt down, placed his hand on her stomach, and whispered, "Thank you for carrying my world all over again." Pregnancy wasn't easy. Natalie kept working, running Bridgewell, attending meetings, signing documents. But now everyone noticed a small cushion under her desk for her feet and a chilled bottle of pomegranate juice always beside her, courtesy of Lucas every morning. Together they went through every ultrasound, every sleepless night with kicks, every anxious doctor's visit, and every burst of laughter when Liam kicked like a professional hip-hop dancer. On a cold winter morning, Liam was born, tiny, red, with black hair and clenched fists. His grip on Natalie's finger was strong. Despite exhaustion, she cried, not from pain but joy. Lucas sat beside her, holding her hand, lips trembling as he first heard someone call him Dad. From that moment on, their world was never the same. Every night, Natalie was the one who put Liam to sleep. She didn't hire a nanny, didn't delegate care, because for her, holding her son was a privilege no one else could replace. One night, after Liam had nursed and fallen asleep on her chest, Natalie stepped out onto the back porch. The moon was bright, the wind crisp. She sat on a rocking chair, wrapped both of them in a blanket. Liam breathed softly. His tiny hand clung to her shirt. Natalie leaned down, kissed his forehead. A tear slid down. Quiet, not of sadness, but gratitude. She hugged him closer and whispered, "You don't have to prove anything. Just live right and work hard. The rewards will come." And Liam, as if sensing her words, curled deeper into her arms, the safest place in the world. Natalie once thought success was reaching a title, but now she knew success is living honestly, loving deeply, and building a family with that same honesty. Amid the rush of life, Natalie found everything: a career to be proud of, a love that ran deep, and a home that felt steady. Not through noise or grand victories, but through patience, kindness, and the quiet belief that what is real will always last. And Liam, with all his small, magical ways, was the gentlest reward life had ever given her. And one day, when he was old enough to ask about courage, she would tell him, "It starts with wearing mismatched shoes and walking into the unknown anyway."